Good afternoon. 2023 begins with a trip to the City Ground. Nottingham Forest playing host to Chelsea at this afternoon. The two-times Champions League winners trip to the two-times European Cup winners. It's a big one this afternoon. The first trip to the City Ground in over 20 years for Graham Potter's men. Forest second bottom, but with a good home record. Chelsea will need to be at it from the very, very start today. Colder climes than some of the players have been used to over the last couple of weeks. 1 or 2 returning from the World Cup, of course. Chelsea looking to continue on from a good win in the week and start 2023 in the best way possible. Good afternoon and welcome to 2023. Happy New Year and welcome to Matchday Live. I'm in the brilliant company of Abby McCarthy and Savage Dan. How are we both? We good?
Yeah,
very good.
Good.
Yeah.
Pumped. 2023, let's get it.
I'm going to start with you, Abby, because you're always the picture of positivity. Talk to me about how you're feeling about 2023 for Chelsea.
I think it's going to be good. I really do. I feel like because we ended the year with that really positive performance against Bournemouth, very convincing win, felt like we were really cohesive, probably for the first time, to be honest, under Potter. It felt like we had a real identity. Potter ball is coming, and I think it's good.
Dan, we were cleansed in the rain on the Stamford Bridge pitch on Tuesday. Good result, good win, nice way to finish 2022.
Yeah, exactly what we needed. I think we dominated. It felt nervy towards the end of the game for some reason, but I think that's just because we're nervous. But it was very it was a comfortable win, dominated from start to finish. Didn't really give Bournemouth a sniff. So hopefully we can continue that today and put a team that we should really be putting away, even though they have good home form. Nottingham Forest is a team that unfortunately you just got to go and beat.
It's true, and Abby, it's a word that we're going to use a lot today, but momentum. You know, it's important to build that momentum, to come back from the World Cup, hit the ground running like we did against Bournemouth. And if you are writing a game on paper, a fixture that you want Chelsea to have, it's probably against the team in the bottom three.
Well, exactly. We should go in and score an early goal and kind of put this game to bed nice and early. Fingers crossed. We know we don't always like to make things easy. This is definitely a game that we should win, but it is the Premier League. You know, no game is ever easy. Notts have got an amazing form at home. Obviously, they beat Liverpool. That was a bit of a shock, and a kind of few other big teams as well. So it's not going to be easy, but I think off the back of that really positive performance the other day, I really back us.
They have got good home form, like Abby's mentioned there. They are a side that perhaps now it's getting to that stage of the season where they do need to start picking things up, and probably you'd argue for them as well. It's come at a good time. They weren't bad against Manchester United the other night, but to play at home is where they're going to get most of their points this season. They're probably looking at Chelsea at the moment, not in a steady, consistent run. Yeah. Players back from the World Cup. It's probably a good time for them to be playing us as well.
Yeah, they'll think that they can get something out of this game, you know, at home against a Chelsea side that they're not sure what version of us is really going to show up. We're not sure what version of them are really going to show up. So hopefully it's a good game to watch, a good game for the neutrals. But I just hope that we're able to behave like the home side, get on the ball, dominate possession, and kind of just squash them early. You know, we haven't got any. We don't want to be going into the 85th minute 0-0 and needing something. You know, we want to try and have a fast start and get onto them straight away.
It's probably something that players and manager don't think about at all, Abby. But as a fan, you want to start the year in the best way possible. It's something you want to tick off and just go at least get the first win under your belt and then move on from it. It's a tough one today, but it's also a game in which Chelsea you expect to feel confident and comfortable going into it. Yeah,
I'm very much one of those people who's like, new year, new start. So if we walk away with the 3 points today, I think that puts us all in a positive frame of mind. But going back to that performance, you know, the other day, some players who've maybe not kind of been at their best have kind of come back into form. Zachary in the middle was absolutely brilliant as well. So, you know, going into this, we've got to feel confident.
You've got to feel confident. And I suppose for Graham Potter as well, Dan, you will have half an eye on the fact that we've got a double-header against Manchester City coming up. You want to go into that having won your first 2 games before then, so there isn't question marks over needing to get something as such from both games, or, you know, there's a little bit less pressure going into those games.
I think these last 2 games will have taken a bit of pressure off him. We weren't in great form before the World Cup. Come back and we looked quite together. You know, it was quite a complete performance against Bournemouth. Hopefully we get another one today. City, unfortunately, we won't be favourite against them either time because they are City. But it probably helps him because the expectation isn't up here anymore. It's maybe a little bit lower. So if we do go there and get a result, then it's Potterball, you know, and everyone's talking about Potterball. But hopefully Graham Potter's able to go into the stage of his management at Chelsea where now we can kick on and slowly build some momentum.
It's probably quite a nice thing as well, Abby. Obviously, Manchester City dropped points yesterday in the Premier League, but also having 2 games to prepare yourself for one of the biggest tests of the season, one of the biggest tests that Graham Potter will have faced as Chelsea manager, and also, I suppose, make sure that you've got players that are coming back from the World Cup, get them back into fitness. Hakim Ziyech and Mateo Kovacic, obviously late arrivals, both on the bench this afternoon, but players that are going to come back in, making sure that you know what you've got ahead of that game. Not that we're taking Nottingham Forest lightly at all, but in terms of it's quite a nice run-up to make sure that you're at it. If that makes sense.
Exactly. I think a lot of players hitting the form at the right time, and also the fact that he's actually got a bit of time with the players. You know, he didn't get a pre-season. It's tiny little pockets of time between what is a very congested season. You know, he's actually got to spend a bit of time with players now and really get across his message. And I think that's why it was such a brilliant performance against Bournemouth the other day. And hopefully we are going to see Potterball really clicking and becoming the kind of magic thing that we know it can be.
Yeah, absolutely right. Of course, we're going to keep you across everything in the run-up to Chelsea versus Nottingham Forest this afternoon, including the brilliant Matt Davies-Adams, who's at the City Ground for us this afternoon. Good afternoon, Matt, and Happy New Year, mate.
Hey, Joe. Happy New Year to you and everybody. Hope everybody's well.
Very well, thank you, mate. Very well indeed. Obviously, Nottingham Forest are very good at home, and that's where they'll like to bank on most of their points. It will be a big test for Chelsea this afternoon.
Yeah, well, that's right. You know, Liverpool, Tottenham, they can tell you how difficult it can be to come here. It can be a fervent atmosphere, I think it's fair to say, but maybe more significant than that, Forest has got Morgan Gibbs-White available today. We thought he was going to be injured. He's been their best player and their biggest goal threat by quite a wide margin. So, yeah, Gibbs-White plus atmosphere equals tricky game, I think.
I completely agree, and I suppose that is one of those things that, from a Chelsea fan's perspective, it's one of those games you don't want to have to talk about after today. It's one that you want to kind of tick off and go, OK, we've got 3 points on the road there, move on from it, because otherwise, at the end of the season, these are the sort of games, a team in the bottom 3 that you go, yeah, if we'd have got 3 points there, that could have made the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is going to be a good away day for a lot of people here, because there's many Chelsea supporters who will never have been to the City Ground. 1999, the last time that the Blues played here, that was in the Premier League. So people looking for it's a nice stadium. This has got loads of history, lovely location, looking for a nice New Year's Day out. Forest obviously trying to make sure that's not the case. But yeah, it's a game in which 3 points, I don't know, they feel essential. Can we say that? We're not quite halfway through the season, but it's certainly one that Graham Potter will have marked down as a potential W.
Just on that, obviously, Graham Potter has been forced into one change that we know about in Reece James, but other than that, any surprises in the team sheet for you?
I don't think so. I think Dennis Zachariah's done really well. You know, he's the one that maybe we would have thought pre-World Cup, is he going to play much in the Premier League? But he's done excellently so far. Silva and Koulibaly didn't look particularly rusty after the World Cup, did they? Correa obviously left back again, and that front three, Pulisic, Havertz and Sterling, was so impressive against Bournemouth that I think there's no need for Graham Potter to change anything in that regard. Obviously, strength on the bench with Kovacic and Ziyech back as well, but this is the starting 11 out. The players available, I think we all expected, and we ought to tip our hat, hadn't we, to Asby becoming the leading overseas appearance maker in Chelsea history today. Game number 495 for him. Who would have thought that when we picked him up for what, £7 million from Marseille in 2012? Not many better value signings in Chelsea's history, certainly, and maybe in the history of the Premier League, I would suggest.
Completely agree. Perfectly put, mate. An absolute legend of the football club. Just finally as well, because for some Chelsea fans that perhaps won't have seen a huge amount of Nottingham Forest the last year or so, or even since they've come up, you've mentioned Morgan Gibbs-White. Anyone else to look out for today, mate?
Yeah, Ryan Yates making his 150th appearance for Forest. He's a local boy who's come through, and he's like, in a lot of ways, he's the Mason Mouse of Forest. You know, he's a player that supporters, those who love him, really love him. And some people still think he's a bit of a teacher's pet. He's not. He's an excellent player. And so I always think of him and Mount as fairly similar. And Taiwo Iwandi, who they signed to get the goals in the summer, he came in from the Bundesliga. He's had a kind of mixed start so far, but he will feel he can play on Koulibaly and Silva. He's a big, tough, physical centre forward. Not a massive goal threat, but if he can bring Johnson and Gibbs-White into play, that could be a problem for Chelsea too.
Does sound like it should be a good game of football, Matt. And like you said, New Year's Day, new stadium for a lot of Chelsea fans, brilliant atmosphere inside. Very jealous that you're there, mate. So enjoy the game. Thank you very much for that, and we'll speak to you in a bit.
Cheers, Joe.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Brilliant Matt Davies-Adams there at the City Ground for us this afternoon. Everything that Matt's saying, you kind of echo in terms of the team that we're coming up against, Dan. They made a lot of signings in the summer. They can be a difficult team to, I suppose, predict because of the amount of players that they've got available. But the players that they have got available, the ones that we know about, Morgan Gibbs-White being the one, they've got quality, and you've got to be aware of that.
Yeah, 100%. If you're not at the races, Forest will beat you. they would. It's as simple as that. It's probably the same everywhere in the league right now. You know, if you don't turn up and give a top tier performance, you will drop points. Graham Potter knows that. We get to fly beneath the radar a little bit because nobody's talking about, you know, Chelsea and where we are in the league and what's ahead. And, you know, we've got an opportunity here to get some points on the board. Hopefully, you know, use this as a springboard for some success and climb up the ladder and really start having a look at that top four, because I feel like we've fallen out of that conversation recently. But it doesn't take much, you know, a few wins on the bounce and all of a sudden you're back in.
Absolutely right. Let's make another addition to the team then. Before the January window opens, we're going to bring in the brilliant Elizabeth Helenek. Elizabeth, Happy New Year. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Happy New Year, guys. Super excited to be back and starting my new year with you all and to get to see Chelsea again. And yeah, how are you guys doing?
We're all very well, thank you. Thank you for joining us. Brilliant as always. So let's get straight into it then. It's a nice way to kick off, I suppose, the second part of the season, isn't it? Obviously, Chelsea, a good win against Bournemouth in the week, but this is, for a lot of people, the start of the second part of the season, usually. It's a little bit earlier than we'd usually be accustomed to in terms of the game number, but it's important to do that and start in the correct manner today.
I think so, and I think that the team's going to look at that and think the exact same, that they want to get the new year, new start, off to a great start and kind of build off of the momentum as well that they established versus Bournemouth. As you guys were saying, it was a really strong team performance. I think that that's also going to help them going into this match to really ensure that they can get their second half of the campaign, so to speak, off to a good start.
That's really important as well, isn't it? I mean, like Elizabeth said there about continuing on from Bournemouth, we've mentioned momentum, we'll continually mention that, but Chelsea started fast against Bournemouth. You know, they kind of put the game beyond Bournemouth quite quickly. I suppose that's going to be key today, because you don't want the Forest fans to play the part that we know they can play. Yeah,
exactly, because like Matt was saying, an amazing ground, and that place is going to be rocking. It's going to get loud in there. They got all that support behind them. They've got quite good form at home, but if we set the tone nice and early and build on the momentum from that Bournemouth game, it's going to be great.
I suppose if you're doing a tick sheet as well, Dan, we spoke about this after the game against Bournemouth. If you were doing a tick sheet from Chelsea's perspective, you'd want a Kai Havertz goal, a Mason Mount good performance. I know that we always get that, but for two players that are so instrumental to us, you want to make sure they're coming back from the World Cup in the right vein of form. Both of them showing they absolutely are, and it's such a big thing for Chelsea to tick those off and move on from it.
Yeah, we want our best players in form. You know, as often as possible. I know it's difficult for everybody to be in form at the same time, but you know, if you get your best players playing well, you get goals, and goals change games. You know, we kind of didn't let Bournemouth get into this game because we scored so early and we're on top of them so early. But you know, were we not to score these couple of opportunities, they might have grown into the game. You know, so I think it's important that we start putting teams to the sword, putting the ball in the back of the net, make that almost our culture, you know, to kill teams off, you know. Don't be scared to go and get 6 and 7 sometimes. 2-0 was a bit of a weird one because we got 2 goals really quickly and then almost realised that we had something to protect, and we just kind of sat back for the next 60, 70 minutes. So it was a good game of football, but one we can definitely learn from as well.
Also feels as well, Elizabeth, you know, it's the first proper opportunity that Graham Potter will have had with these players without mountains of games in front of them. You know, he'll have, obviously, the first couple of weeks of the World Cup didn't have too many players in the squad, but since then you can really start to see his identity and his imprint on the team because he's actually had time to work with the players on the training field.
Yeah, definitely. I think that we're seeing a couple more attacking patterns, the team starting to take more create more chances and take more shots as well. And I think also something that I noticed that I really liked is that he started bringing in players who had a good World Cup. The player that comes to mind is Christian Pulisic. Obviously, super proud of him being American as well, but I thought that he was phenomenal for the US in the World Cup and hopefully is continuing that good run of form for Chelsea. And I think that Graham Potter's also recognizing that as well. He had a couple of good opportunities versus Bournemouth. So overall, hopefully, Chelsea are able to take advantage of the fact that they've had a quote-unquote mini break and put it to good use. And I think that we're starting to see the fruits of Graham Potter's labor.
Definitely, and Christian Pulisic is a beneficiary of perhaps Graham Potter's footprint being stamped on the team now. The fact that we play a 4-3-3, Potter ball's in full effect, Abby.
Yeah, absolutely. He was causing havoc against Bournemouth, wasn't he? And Sterling, to be fair to him, had a great display on the other flank as well. I mean, the two of them were brilliant. Attacking-wise, it feels like it's really starting to click now. And hopefully we will be firing on all cylinders. And like Dan said, start putting a few past teams, you know, and getting those goals nice and early.
Absolutely, and some of these tweets are just kind of echoing those thoughts about Chelsea in the 4-3-3 system. Players that perhaps look a little bit more comfortable in this specific system, Dan. And I suppose that the success that Graham Potter will have at Chelsea will be largely down to getting the best out of the players that we've got here. And we've got some of the best players in the world. If you get them playing in a position and the system they're comfortable, you're going to get the best out of it.
That's it. If you get, I mean, look, Mason Mount can play anywhere, but if you can get him in a 4-3-3 playing as one of the eights, you're probably going to get the absolute best out of him. Sterling, if you can get him in a 4-3-3 as one of the front three, you're probably going to get the best out of him. More out of him than you'll probably get at wing back. You start playing your best players in their best positions and things just start to happen easier. You know, I think the players naturally drift into better positions. Sterling is known, you know, for almost just arriving at that back post, you know, and I think this was the front three we started with at the very beginning of the season anyway. I think it was Sterling
through the middle.
Yeah, that was it. So interesting to see that it comes back to this, you know. I think all we need now is goals, and it will come. We're not a team that for the last few seasons has scored many, but if we can start...
It'll come.
Yeah, it will come. Okay. It has to come. If not, then we'll work on a clean sheet.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. Someone who's going to be instrumental in both of those areas and has been fantastic the last few weeks or the last few outings that we've seen, Elizabeth, has been Denis Zakaria. What a revelation he's been since he's been given an opportunity.
Yeah, he's really made a massive impact in the middle of the pitch because with N'Golo Kanté out injured, you had Kovacic and Jorginho playing essentially almost every game. Maybe Ruben Loftus-Cheek was filling in there, maybe Mason Mount was filling in there. And I just feel that he's made this big impact in making sure that Jorginho and Kovacic don't have to play every game. We can see some rotation. We can see some players rested. And specifically against Bournemouth, I felt that he made some really good tackles and clearances. I think he can still maybe add a little bit more to his game and become more comfortable with the team. But I really like what I've seen. And I think the key going forward is to just keep giving him more game time because he hasn't played so many minutes for Chelsea. And he's made a good impact in the time that he's been given.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. And I'm going to avoid asking you about Azpilicueta, Elizabeth. So I'm going to speak to Abby on this because I know we know absolutely how much of a fan you are. We all are, and I suppose that's the positive side to take from the fact that unfortunately Reece did have a recurrence of that injury and Reece is going to be out for a little while now. But the fact that you've got someone as dependable and as reliable, if there is a positive to come from Reece's injury, it's the fact that if you do have to replace him with someone, you've got arguably one of the most dependable players in the history of the football club coming in to captain and play right back. Yeah,
the most dependable person, one of the leaders on the pitch, you know, such a likeable person. Everyone just plays better when he's on the pitch. He's just brilliant. I'm turning into Elizabeth now. Rein me back in, but he just is a phenomenal player, isn't it? And like Matt was alluding to earlier, what a bargain. Yeah. Started so many games from us, and you always know his performances are going to be of such quality. Honestly, we're just so lucky to have him.
We're all fully paid up members of the Cesar Azpilicueta fan club. Absolutely right. Rightly so. What a legend of this football club. Speaking of good business, Dan, Chelsea have been active already in the transfer market. Probably the most important one has been the fact that we brought in Christopher Vivell, which is going to help oversee the transfer policy at this football club. It's important to have that structure in place, isn't it? Because all big clubs do have that now, and perhaps we're one of the last to maybe get that structure in place, but it's a massive step forward for the football club.
Yeah, huge. I'm not sure still to this point, you know, who makes transfers, and you know, you hear whispers, oh, was that a manager signing, was that the club, was that this? It's good to have somebody in that position that is able to oversee everything. I think it makes things smoother for absolutely everybody, including the player that's coming in. And now it's just about finding the correct players at the correct moments for the correct price, of course. And you know, we want to be able to have good recruitment. You know, we've been known for doing good things, and it was almost very scary at times from rival clubs. Whenever we would sign a player, they'll be like, oh no, Chelsea have got them, so you know what that means. They're going to really kick on and do something from it. So very good that we've got someone in that position now, and hopefully the transfer policy, you know, steps it up even more.
Absolutely right. New Year, so everyone's on about New Year's resolutions today, aren't they? So we're going to do a little bit of that, but it's more predictions than resolutions, okay? So I'm going to give you 3 scenarios between the 3 of you, and I want a will, won't and could happen. Okay, so something that will happen, something that won't happen, something that could happen. So, so one thing that will definitely happen this year for Chelsea. Let's go to Elizabeth for that. Something that definitely will happen for Chelsea this year, Elizabeth.
You know, it's so hard to predict. I was thinking about this, and I'm not so happy with my answer, to be honest, because I think I have better ones for the other ones, but we'll just go with it. So I think that something that definitely will happen is that Pulisic's going to come back into form. I think that's a big shout. But I really have liked what I've seen. I really liked how he played in the World Cup, and I feel like we might be getting post-pandemic Pulisic back in this team. So that's kind of my big shout.
Okay, then one thing that definitely won't happen then, Elizabeth, if you've got ones prepared, I'm ready for them.
Okay, so one thing that won't happen is I don't think that N'Golo Kanté leaves Chelsea at the end of the season. His contract expires in June, but I think that he's going to stay, and I really hope that he does because he's just brilliant.
I think that's a fantastic answer. Okay, then one thing that could happen for the clean sweep.
One thing that could happen is that I think we could win the FA Cup, even though we're going against Man City in the next round. It's going to be a tough match, but we've got into the final so many years now, especially in a row. So I still think that that's a possibility.
Okay, fantastic. Well, I think she's done it for us, panel, to be fair. And I know that the one thing that could happen from you, Dan, is we're going to win the Champions League.
I was going to say,
100%
definite.
I'm always peddling that one as well.
Nothing more. That's all I need. That's all I need.
We're going to peak at the right time. Trust me.
Right, well, obviously, we're one of the latest Premier League fixtures to take off this week. So let's have a little look at the rest of the league fixtures that have happened the last couple of days. And obviously, it's been an interesting weekend, team, hasn't it, for Premier League fixtures? It's been one that some have gone the way that we wanted them to, i.e. the one right at the bottom, just above us, that's just finished, I think. Aston Villa 2, Tottenham 0. A big win for Arsenal, Abby. They look very good. Worryingly, they look very good, don't they?
Yeah.
Any others stand out for you?
I mean, City dropping points really with a draw there, because the top four battle, wow, it is hotting up. It's probably the most kind of contested it's been for quite a few seasons, to be honest. Yeah. So yeah, looking at those results in particular, I'm scared.
and in fairness as well, Dan, I mean, it's lively at the bottom end of the table, but no one expects to see West Ham as low as they are. They do look like they're struggling a little bit.
Yeah, Brentford are a team at the moment that just will turn up and just beat you at home. I don't know what their problem is this year, but they seem to really be at the races. The one I was looking at most was the 0-0 Newcastle Leeds, because I've been keeping a close eye on Newcastle, who seem to be very impressive this season. But they dropped points. This has been a very, very good weekend for Arsenal, pretty much.
All you would say, though, is if you are going to drop points, not conceding a goal is a good way to go about it, isn't it? Because it still shows that you're ticking over and you're about. And I suppose the big one, really, Elizabeth, is the fact that Liverpool started to find form again, and they obviously had a little blip towards the start of the season. But when your luck's in and a centre-half scores 2 own goals against you, I think perhaps your fans start to believe a little bit more, don't they? That maybe you might get the rub of the green in the second half of the season.
Yeah, I think that they've been going under the radar, and they had a really shaky start to the season, but nobody's had so much focus on them because it's all been Arsenal at the top of the table. Man City, are they going to catch up? Newcastle have had a brilliant season, but they're being very sneaky as well. Man United sneakily somehow in fourth. But I think the thing that is an interesting point to make is that the table is so tight. So we're currently 8 points behind United in fourth, but we do have a game in hand. So if we win that game in hand, it's just 5 points between 9th now and 4th. So anything could realistically happen. And yeah, I don't know. I'm excited to see how the fixtures go.
Oh, absolutely. And Chelsea put out a strong lineup this afternoon. If you haven't seen the lineup that Graham Potter has selected at the City ground this afternoon, we've got it here for you. I suppose it's not really a case of who needs a performance, Abby. It's more, who do you think needs minutes? Because this is still very much a pre-season within a season almost, isn't it? And you've got so many players, like Elizabeth said, Christian Pulisic had a great World Cup. Kai Havertz had a great World Cup, despite Germany not having a great World Cup, really. You know, Mason Mount is brilliant as always. Cucurella and Silva and Koulibaly as a back four, a little bit more sort of cohesion and getting to know each other. Anyone standing out for you?
I guess Sterling didn't really get to play as much at the World Cup as he would have liked. Obviously, a lot of personal issues and things going on, and he had such a brilliant performance the other day, so I'm hoping he excels against as well. Cucurella, big game again for him. I think we're really starting to see the best of him. He was such a kind of hype signing, wasn't it? And I feel like we're really starting to see why, so they'd be the ones that I'd pick out.
It's important as well, isn't it, for, I know we've already touched on Aspi, Dan, but it's important that he kind of, I suppose, gets for sort of comfortable very quickly, because for a player that hasn't had a huge amount of minutes and has had to come in and do a number of different jobs over the years, we know how dependable and brilliant he is and how reliable he is, but for him as well, it's important for him to get a run now. If he is going to be the starting right back for however long, it's almost a little bit of a challenge that he can sit down to Reece James to say, whenever you're fit and ready, you've got to take it off, you've got to take the shirt off the back almost. Yeah,
well, that's it, you know, and he's so dependable. You always know you're going to get a 7 or an 8 minimum out of 10. You know, you're going to get lots of effort. You're going to get the talking, the communication. He is the captain, the gaffer. That is his role on the pitch. You know, he's the man. You know, almost the father. So I never feel like we are lacking anything when he's at right back. You know, a pacey left winger will scare anyone, but he has so much know-how that you just know he's going to be able to deal with it. But it's the midfield three that I think is going to be the difference going forward in this back four. A lot of our build-up's been based around wing-backs. In a 4-3-3, we'll be quite dynamic through the middle, as we've got a 6, 8 and a 10 in there, basically. I think we'll be quite fluid today.
Absolutely right. OK, then it's time for the toughest part of the show, which is the trivia. Now, we've had good and bad moments on this team, all right, but I'm sure everybody over Christmas has been clued up with trivia, and they've done quizzes. So let's see the question for today then. Obviously, we don't see this beforehand, so this is the first time we see this. Who did we play, and what was the score the last time we played on New Year's Day? Oh, OK. Now, I don't know if that's a clue, because sometimes that's a red herring, but I remember Aspi scoring a goal. I love that kit, by the way. Yeah. I remember Aspi scoring that goal. I think I might know who it is. Elizabeth, I'm expecting a photographic memory. If Aspi scored in a game, I'm expecting you to know that without even blinking twice.
Is that picture got anything?
I wish I was this good. Actually, it's so funny because my brother got me a Chelsea quiz book, and I was like, okay, I can use this for trivia because I'm so bad at it. So try to prepare. I think it's an away. We played away from the kit.
We've got to tick it all off. That's fine. That's fine. We'll slowly chip away at it. We've got until half-time to come up with the answer. But the pensive look on all of our faces is slightly concerning. It's
because it's New Year's Day. Everyone's always a little bit worse for wear on New Year's Day.
Did we play last year on New Year's Day?
Well, I'll tell you what, have a think. Let's not show our work, and let's have a little think, because right now it's time to hand over to Max and Jason for the warm-up.
Yeah, thanks to Joe, Dan and Avi, and of course thanks to you for joining us for Chelsea's first game of the new year away to Nottingham Forest in the Premier League. The Blues are on the banks of the River Trent today, and of course wherever we go, Trivago are with us, bringing us Chelsea's warm-up live from the City ground. Alongside me for today's game is former Blue Jason Cundy. Good afternoon, Jason.
Good afternoon, Max, and good afternoon, everyone. Happy New Year to you and everyone listening.
Yeah, very happy New Year to you as well, Jason. Chelsea are chasing their first away win on the road since the Villa game in mid-October. So Jason's been looking at the 3 things that we need to do to secure all 3 points this afternoon. Firstly, you believe that the key to success lies with a particular Mason Mount.
Yeah, we're looking at the team shape. It looks like he's going to go with exactly what we did against Bournemouth. Mace playing in a number 10 role. A lot of people thought it was a 4-3-3, and, you know, formations now in the modern game are incredibly fluid, but actually Mace was a 10. That's where he occupied most of the game. In out possession, there were times when he would drop deep, but when you play a 10, you need to be available. And Koulibaly in particular, I felt in the first half, was finding him a lot of times, zipping that ball in step, drilling the ball across the surface of the pitch, getting that into his feet. And Mace is so good at that half turn, and that's how the first goal came about for Kai. When the ball's got him, good first touch, goes out to Sterling and whips across the face of the goal. And then, of course, the goal that he scored, again, just drifting off, not being too high, not being too deep, just arriving right place, right time, edge of the box, using one of the defenders to just as a barrier to whip it around him into that bottom left-hand corner. And I feel that was mostly down to the way that we played, and I felt we looked a far more attacking threat. Now, if you're Steve Cooper, you'd have watched that game, and Steve does his due diligence, they will be looking at Mace. They'll look at that team, as we all have, and gone, it's a 4-2-3-1 again. We need to make sure we do not allow Mace that space. So there's two ways of dealing with it. The back four can push up high and condense close to the midfield, or the midfield drops. So one of those two things to stop Mace around those areas, but I thought he was excellent against Bournemouth.
He certainly was, as Chelsea look to get back to some of the free-flowing best that we have seen under Graham Potter in the early stages of his tenure. But secondly, let's look at this second point here. It's about asserting dominance when on top, and it's a good chance to do that today against the side who are conceding on average 2 goals a game.
Yeah, the home form, it's a little bit of, the home form is better, but there's a reason why they are where they are in the league. They don't score enough goals. They concede too many. That's a bad combo for, you have to be an Einstein to work out that at any level of football you're going to struggle. Where I feel at times, and it's not just this season, Max, it's been the previous season, when we've got our noses in front, or even necessarily been on top in games, we've not been able to punish the team. Spurs at home is the perfect example of what I'm talking about here. To allow Spurs still in the game at 1-0, and of course they got that very late equalise, even though that Romero should have been perhaps sent off with a hair pull on Cucurella. But killing the game, or having a bit of daylight between you and them, and we've done that against Bournemouth, and that gave the opposition manager a problem, because then you've got to react differently to how you can go in. 1-0, the game is still very much alive. 2-0, you've got to start coming up with answers. And I feel that we need to be more ruthless when we're on top, when we create chances, to get that second goal, to get not just our noses in front, but then give the opposition a conundrum that they've got to do something different about the way that they play.
It was a quick-fire double as well, wasn't it? 2 goals inside the opening 24 minutes. That's exactly the approach that you want to see in this sort of game. Yeah,
and Gary O'Neill would have kept it tight second half, because he didn't want to concede. Well, it wouldn't have changed much. But second half, as the game goes on, in actual fact, I thought they were right, but Bournemouth at 2-0. I think that they did pose 1 or 2 problems. But when you're in that position, if we do get the third goal and that leaves them vulnerable to the counter, the game is almost dead. So Gary then was in the situation where he's like, I need to score the next goal, but what I don't need to do is concede the next one. At 1-0, he's still very much in that gambling process where he's saying, do you know what, we can still afford, because we've got to get back, we can afford to be a little bit more cavalier. It's only 1-0. At 2-0, you really are. There's all so many questions and very few answers. But against Forest, if we get the first goal, what's Steve Cooper going to do? He's going to probably play something similar. At 2-0, might have to change things.
Well, supposing it does get to 2-0, then that is a really good opportunity for Chelsea to turn their away form around. It's not been great on the road this season, has it, Jason, compared to what we're used to seeing from the Blues?
Yeah, this is one of the reasons why we are outside the top 4 and staring up and at times looking over our shoulder. Our away record this season has been pretty poor. We've lost 4, won 3 and drawn 1, and that is not the numbers or the stats of a side that should be in and around the top 4 places. We're better than that, and today really does give us an opportunity at the start of the year to turn that around. This is a place that we should come and dominate possession. It's a place we should come when chances are created to score and go on to win the game. But I've seen them beat Liverpool here, Max. I've seen them beat Spurs in the Carabao Cup. This is a side that actually at home in recent months haven't lost. So this is not going to be easy, but it's Forest away, a side that will probably play Championship football next season.
We spoke to Matt Davis-Adams earlier in the show, heard all about what the atmosphere is like from the ground itself. I mean, when you're playing in that sort of cauldron, that sort of environment, how easy is it to silence those home fans? Or is it just one of those things that you just have to learn to tune out?
Well, so they're going to come here today. They're facing the still current world champions. And, when it wasn't that long ago, we were lifting the Champions League, and not that long ago, we were lifting the Premier League. This is a side that has a rich history. And they'll want to come up against Chelsea. They want to come up against Liverpool, Spurs, Arsenal, all the big heads, and put in a good showing. It's New Year's Day. It's the late kick-off. It's under lights. It's one of those games that is a potential banana skin for Chelsea. So I think what you've got to go into is fully aware. Go into it with your eyes wide open. There's a lot of players here that wouldn't have played at the City Ground before because of where Forest have been. But I think when you go into games like this, controlling the tempo of the game, frustrate the crowd if you can. But it goes back to the second point, Max. When chances present themselves, ruthlessness is absolutely key. Because if you can't finish chances when they're created or when they're in front of you, you're always going to be looking around thinking, could be 1-0 up, could be 2-0 up, and that will allow the crowd to still have a say in this game.
Talking about being able to take the chances, we just saw a glimpse of Kai Havertz there. An instinctive finish from him against Bournemouth. Hopefully will do his confidence a world of good.
Yeah, you know, he had a half-decent World Cup. It's been you know, people talk to me about Kai a lot. Who is he? What is he? What's his best position? He's not a number 9. He's a number 10. You know, so he's one of those players that I still think is trying to find what is his best role in what formation. Because Chelsea historically over the last 3 or 4 years, we've had managers that will play 3, will play a 5, will play a 4, will play a 4-2-3-1, as we do, 4-3-3. So I have a bit of sympathy with Kai because actually the team's not built around him. And when you're a player of his quality, you should be able to deal with that, as he has proven and shown over the years. Of course, the Champions League final is the perfect example of that.
And just very quickly, a final question for you, Jason, before we hand back. Dennis Zakaria, impressed, didn't he, last time out?
Do you know what? I'm really impressed with him. His all-round distribution was good. His effect without the ball was excellent. Closing down, a physical presence in the park. But actually, I think when you look at our midfielders, and Kanté, as good as they are, Jorginho, Conor Gallagher, Pulisic, these aren't physically big boys. He is. He's got that authority to go in there and use that frame and those big legs of his, those long legs, to get around the pitch and have a real impact on this game physically.
Yeah, he's got real winning mentality as well. He's speaking to the club after the game, saying they didn't feel like it was his best performance, so certainly more to come from him in midfield. More to come from us as well. Jason and I will be back with you just before kick-off, but for now it's time to hear from Graham Potter.
Another new one.
Sorry? Yeah, Steve Cooper's pathway has been really impressive. Similarities with myself, of course. I think obviously time at Swansea, but I think before then he had a fantastic period working with the FA. Had great success there with the teams there, and then Swansea, the job he did there was amazing. He's a fantastic coach. You can see the job that he's done at Nottingham Forest and where they are and where they were when he took over. He's done an amazing job. So I've spoken to him a few times. It's probably the first time I'm going to meet him, so I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, we expect a tough game. Well, I think whenever you have lots of new players, there's a challenge with integration. There's a challenge with working out what the best 11 are for specific games, getting your ideas across to the many players as you can over a short period of time. Obviously, when the games are going on, there's not too much time in terms of training access, but still you have to make the most of it. You have to make it as valuable as you can whenever you're on the grass. But you can see from Steve's perspective that you know, performances have built, and as a result of that, the results have got better. So he's a fantastic coach. He's had some challenges in terms of the numbers of players that they've had to integrate into the team, but I think he's done it in a really good way. Well, we're delighted with Chris's appointment. I've met him a few times, and I think he's going to be a fantastic addition to Chelsea Football Club and all the people that are here already. The one thing I realise here is there's a lot of top people, and I think, as I always say, the challenge for us is to work as a collective, to work as a club, to work together, align the resources that we have to make the right decisions, to make the best decisions for the short, medium and long term of this amazing club, and that's the responsibility and the challenge that we're all really privileged to be able to do.
Speaks fantastically well, doesn't he? Graham Potter there, looking ahead to today's trip to the City Ground against Nottingham Forest, in the company of Elizabeth, Abby and Dan still. Elizabeth, I'm going to start with you then. Prediction for today, please.
Oof. I'm going to go for a 2-0 Chelsea win. I think that we're going to win and we will keep a clean sheet in the process.
OK, 2-0 sounds nice. Abby?
I'm going to go even more positive and go 3-0.
3-0?
I think it's time. Attacking, it's locked in.
OK.
I hope I don't regret this.
Okay. Dan?
I was going to go 2-0, but I'm just going to go 1-0, just so I've got my own score.
Balance.
That's it.
Yeah.
So we've covered all bases.
Yeah.
So I'll go 4 and above. Okay. We've got covered all bases. Who's the key player then today, then, Abby? Who do you think? If Chelsea are going to score 3, where do those goals come from?
Kai Havertz, hopefully. Obviously, he's the player who's scored the most goals under Graham Potter. Great assist from him the other day as well. I think we'll see goals from him and hopefully from Sterling as well.
You mentioned the clean sheet, Elizabeth. Obviously, Chelsea have got a tremendously experienced back line in Thiago Silva, Koulibaly and Cesar Azpilicueta. I think if you're picking an all-time Chelsea back 4 and you've got options, they're all going to be in the conversation, aren't they?
Definitely, and I think that I've been just so impressed continuously with Thiago Silva, the way that he's able to adapt to the game. He had a bit of a shaky start versus Bournemouth, but then he really grew into it, and I feel that he's just so ultra reliable. Azpilicueta, Koulibaly as well, and Kepa, I feel that you have to throw into the conversation. He's just been incredible since he's come in. I saw this stat that he had like an 84% save percentage or something crazy like that. He's just been super reliable when called upon as well.
I absolutely agree. Kepa's been fantastic since Graham Potter's come in, to be fair, Dan. He's been brilliant. We speak quite a lot about Mason Mount, but in this sort of 8/8.5 towards 10 role, he's so important. But I suppose it's important for Mason as well to just get a steady run of games in one position.
That's it. Yeah, I think he's so good at playing in any position that it could almost hinder him, because he might not get enough runs of games in that position. That it's his best position, that 8.5, 10 role, because his main thing is that half turn. You know, it kills teams. The way he receives the ball, and if he gets in that little half space between the opposition's defence and midfield, he's almost impossible to stop from there. You know, once he's got the ball and he's facing your goal, you're in big trouble. So hopefully in this system, we're able to get him there between the lines a little bit more than, you know, he can hurt you from out wide as well. But in that little nook there, he's so dangerous that I think he'll be really important in this system.
Absolutely right. Thank you very much, you three. Brilliant as always. Time now to hand over to our commentary team of Max and Jason for Chelsea away at Nottingham Forest.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Great stuff, as always. So, a first trip to the City Ground for Chelsea in almost 24 years, and an opportunity for Graham Potter's side to turn their away fortunes around. The Blues have lost their last 3 games on the road in all competitions. Not since 2019 under Mauricio Sarri have they lost 4 in a row. But Graham Potter has had much more time to work with his side over the World Cup break, and that was evident in the performance against Bournemouth last time out. And now they have a chance to show that their return to free-flowing football wasn't just